अनिता, मैं भेज रहा हूँ गणेश अंकल 10 मिनट में पहुंचेंगे। 10 मिनट में पहुंचेंगे गणेश अंकल।
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, the annual event has just got over, but will this budget make a difference to you and me? What does it mean to India as a whole? Is it a growth in GDP number or a boom in stock market? With the slogan Jaan bhi aur jahan bhi, there were many expectations of the industry and people with this budget. As indicated earlier by the finance minister, this budget would be like never before. It is indeed a never like before budget as India witnessed paperless budget for the very first time. Everyone expected that the budget would serve as a vaccine for the revival of continuous growth of Indian economy. Well, to answer such interesting questions, I, Ayushi Mararka, welcome you to our 18th webinar on decoding the budget powered by Nike Group companies. And just before we start our session today, we have something to share. And I think numbers make more sense when narrated with story. So here we have Nikhil sir, this time talking as an investor and who will share his real life experience with us. Over to you, Nikhil sir.
Thank you, Ayushi. Hello all. Thank you very much for joining in on a Saturday afternoon. And this was around 2007 when the markets were booming. November 2007, I was with some of my colleagues and a friend of mine from Kotak Mutual Fund approached me and said that we are launching a new concept called the Star Kit. and why don't you start looking at it? My daughter was just born July 2007, and I anyways had to do something for her. And the other thing that happened was some of my team members, friends used to say, "Yaar, tum log SIP bolte ho. Does it really make any returns, or does it really make money for investors?" So I told my friends, my colleagues, and my friends at Kotak also that let me start with a SIP and let's see if I can run this SIP for next 18 years or so. There used to be an entry load in those days, and it used to be 2% that time. And I said, let me run it with an entry load and see how things fall in place. And we started this journey. Esteban, if you could just share the first slide. And this is just for example, I mean, this is a real story. So I remember standing outside my office and I told my colleagues that I'm going to start this investment and try and see if I can actually stick to this investment for next 15, 18 years of time. It's been 13 years when we started, and this is what would have happened to my PPF, because I added a little bit of money in between, 2 lakh rupees once on a birthday, and another 1.5 lakh rupees on the way. And so this is what would have happened to my PPF. This PPF would have become 36 lakhs. I have contributed about 20 lakhs or so. I have not, when the entry load was banned, I did not go back to Kotak Mutual Fund and said that, look, cancel my entry load. I just kept it like that because I wanted to see, does the cost matter? Does the time matter, or does the return matter? Next slide, please. And during these times, go back to the previous slide, Esma. During these times, when I started, the markets were at 20,000 all-time high. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit us. 2009 to 2013, I remember that time was really painful because SIPs were not delivering any returns for a time period. This was under a fund called Kotak Blue Chip. Kotak Blue Chip didn't do well for 2-3 years or so. I did not really worry. Then the markets went to 27,000 markets then, and I kept investing. I didn't really worry. In fact, some of my other funds have gone, I've invested, I've redeemed money, but I did not touch this money at all. And what really hit was I remember in COVID times, this portfolio actually went down by about went down to about 30 lakhs or so. It went actually below the PPF money. And, 2 times I felt that, oh, what I was saying was probably not right. And 2009 to 2013, as an investor, I had doubts about my decision to invest in a SIP, my decision to continue to invest in an SIP. 2020, the value actually went down, the PPF value. And I told myself, I thought that there was a risk, but the risk that I thought was not about my investment going down, but was about whether after 5 years I will be able to give sufficient money to my daughter for her education or not. What that was the bigger risk that was playing on my mind. Next slide, please. And this is what happened. I had done a SIP of 10,000 rupees, uh, added a little bit of money in between. 20 lakh rupees is the net addition. As we speak, day before, yeah, as we speak, yesterday's value is actually half a crore rupees. And I think, for me, the greatest gift of being in this business has been uh, seeing the power of compounding, and seeing that power of compounding really, really working in our favor. So, and I'm sure all of us going forward will also have. I remember Melissa and I had done a event about just before the COVID crisis, and he said that there will be SARS, there will be bird flu, and actually it turned out that there was a bird flu risk again coming back, and he said there will be many more cases, there will be many more risks in future also. But I think the biggest thing that we should do, and he said three things: invest regularly, focus on asset allocation, and continue or stay invested for long term. So I think if we follow these 2-3 rules, I'm sure power of compounding will always help all of us and work in our favor. So thank you, especially to Kotak Mutual, because money has actually grown in last few years thanks to their prudent management also. So thanks a lot, everyone. And I invite you to actually focus on the right thing in life. I think the bigger risk that all of us will have is, can our goals be met? Will we have sufficient money when we retire? And stick to your asset allocation, stick to long-term investing, and I'm sure we will see far better times in times to come. Thank you, Ayushi.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your experience with us. And I really learned a lesson with this example of yours, that sometimes money saved is money earned, and we should stay committed to our goals first. With this, I would now like to take all our investors to a small activity where before we understand the technicalities of the budget, let us answer a few questions based on our own understanding and comfort. I will be now running polls with a few questions which will pop up on your screen, and you will have to answer the best answer suited as per your understanding. And don't worry, because all the answers will be the right answers. So let us begin with a small activity of answering a few questions through poll. Um, yeah. So the first question is, how would you rate the budget? Okay, I can see people answering, and we have received almost 50% of votes. Last few seconds. Okay, 80% of the participants have voted, and I will now end the poll. Let us look at the answers from our audiences. Okay, so 54% of the participants feel that the budget was good, 3% feel that it was bad, and close to 44% feel that it was a moderate budget. We will now move to our next question. So since the lockdown is starting to lift a little bit, let us see who would be traveling outside your hometown in the last who have traveled to their hometown in the last 3 months. Okay, we have received 70% votes. Okay, I will now end the poll as we have received majority of the people's answer. So it's a tie. Almost 50% says we have not visited, and 49% says we have visited our hometown. So yeah, it was a nice insight. Let us now move to our next question. So the last question, will you watch a movie in the theater in the coming months? Okay, so it is very fascinating to see the answers by the people. I'll end the vote and share the results. So 20% will be going to watch a movie and 80% will still stay at home. Okay, so thank you for participating in this small activity. Let us now start our session. I would like to invite our Chief Growth Officer and Executive Director, Mr. Nikhil Nayak, to say a few words before we start our session today.
Thank you, Aishi. It's always been a pleasure to have Nilesh Bhai. And Nilesh Bhai, you have a great fan following across our investors and across obviously the country. And you've always been very kind enough to take time out of your schedule, busy schedule. I think what I really learned from him is the sheer passion and sheer passion to imbibe, impart wealth of knowledge that he has. I must share one small incident. He was at Times of India Economic Conclave, Economic Times Conclave, and the interviewer asked him that, "Do you think that India will reach Mr. Modi's dream of 5 trillion economy?" And he said that if India has to reach $5 trillion economy, it has to be mine, and everybody's dream. And that's a passion with which he speaks. That's a passion with which he, keeps tweeting about. I remember the times when you had written a reply to Jim Rogers about how the India story will unfold, and how Jim Rogers you've actually proven him wrong in last few years. And I'm sure he must be, if he had read this, he must be regretting not investing in India in last few years. So thank you, Aishi. You could just have a formal introduction and start with Nilesh Bhai's session very quickly, because I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for his session. So
Yes, I would now like to invite our speaker for the day, whose name in itself is a complete introduction, Mr. Nilesh Shah. Mr. Shah is a managing director of Kotak Mahindra Management Company, and he has over 25 years of experience in capital markets and market-related investments. Mr. Shah was a part of the team that received the Best Fund House of the Year award at all the mutual funds where he has worked. Nilesh Shah is also a chairman of AMFI, member of MFAC, and a part-time member of Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. He was also featured in Top 50 People of India by India Today for 2020. And despite of his ever demanding and challenging job, Mr. Shah also tries to make time for reading and educating investors on wealth management. He has also co-authored books on financial planning called A Direct Take. And who better can give us a clarity over the budget of the decade than the gold medalist himself, who has received gold medal in Chartered Accountancy course and is a merit ranker in cost accountancy. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste more time and welcome our honorable speaker for today, Mr. Nilesh Shah. NIQuealth welcomes you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Ayushi. Thanks, Nikhil. Very good afternoon to all of you. What a budget it was. For last 5 days, market hasn't got enough of it. Why did market reacted so joyfully to the budget? What is in this budget which is giving so much joy to the market? If I look at this budget, I am remembered of old Hindi movie Sita or Geeta. It's a movie in which Hema Malini played two characters, a shy, introvert, always fearful girl Sita, and a daring, adventurous, bold girl Geeta. This budget is India's transition from being Sita to Geeta. For years, we have pressed self-destruct button to restrict and curtail ourselves. Now we are creating a path which is good for us. This is the budget of Atmanirbhar Bharat. For decades, we have listened to the sermon of rating agencies who will tell us that you should contain fiscal deficit, cut spending, be on the path of fiscal prudence. When pandemic hit us, we had to enforce strictest of the lockdown. People laughed at us, saying that this has caused untold misery on migratory laborers. Shutting of economic activity has taken out livelihoods from people. Unemployment has gone sky high, and this will create untold misery for Indians. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, when we evaluate, yes, people had to take a lot of pain as they moved from city to rural India, but government spent more than 4 lakh crore to provide food to 80 crore Indians. We didn't allow an Indian to die because of hunger, because he didn't have job. Of course, government alone cannot take the credit. Many of us also supported in our individual capacity to ease the burden of migratory labor. But the government also took the burden of 9.3% deficit to GDP in order to support this. This is our budget to the rating agencies where we say, yes, we will respect your path of fiscal prudence, but we will follow it on our terms. When my people need support, I will go and spend. I will borrow money. I will support my economy. And over a period of time, I will make gradual readjustment on the path of fiscal prudence. It's a brave decision. This is what is making this budget different from rest of the budget. This is a budget of confident India trying to become economically dominant player in post-Wuhan virus world. In recent times, we saw emergence of Chinese goods in India. दिवाली में लाइट खरीदने जाओ तो मेड इन चाइना, गणपति फेस्टिवल में गणेश की मूर्ति लेने जाओ तो मेड इन चाइना, डेकोरेशन मेड इन चाइना. This was destroying our small and medium enterprises. We were becoming nation of trader from nation of manufacturer. Now government has said, I will equip my local entrepreneurs. I will give minimum government, maximum governance. I will put import duty on Chinese dumping. More importantly, I will use PLI scheme to invite foreigners from abroad to set up manufacturing in India. This budget lays the foundation for becoming a dominant economic player in post-Wuhan virus world. This is the budget of a bold India, India which said that yes, Wuhan virus hit and crippled us. Our economy degrew 24% in first quarter of this year. We had suffered many deaths, though per million basis it is one of the lowest in the world. Now we have put our efforts in getting a vaccine out, and we are the top 5 countries in the world which have developed vaccine for COVID-19 Wuhan virus. We are spending 35,000 crore to vaccinate our population. Our public healthcare infrastructure is very poor comparable to African nations. For decades, we didn't invest into healthcare. For poor people, getting a disease was a death warrant. I have a friend working in Mumbai Municipal Corporation, and there are some organizations who support them. And once she told me that in municipality corporation, they have to always take tough decisions. The limited medicines which they have, should they give to the elderly person to save his or her life, or should they give it to a kid who has a long life ahead? And invariably, they end up rationing those scarce medicine to young people rather than elderly people. Now government is saying that we will invest more than 2 lakh crore, 100% higher than previous year, to build India's healthcare infrastructure. This is the budget of self-reliant India, self-confident India, which is saying that we recognize our neighbors are not good to us. Pakistan, China, and Nepal someday will come together to wage a war against India, and we need to create a deterrence for them. We need to equip our military and defense forces with modern equipments with which there will be a significant deterrence to nasty neighbors not to do any mischief. This is the budget which is equipping Indian military to manage 2.5 fronts at one go. This is the budget of transformed India. When we got independence, we had to take a right path, but we actually take a left turn. And we kept on seeing country after country surpassing us. Japan, ravaged by atom bombs, did very well. Korea, suffering bloody partisan like us, did very well. Taiwan, which had a lot of problems with China, still did very well. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines did very well. Lee Kuan Yew, who was a lawyer in Indian Overseas Bank of Singapore and who wanted to model Singapore on Mumbai, show that Singapore overtook India by a big margin. Now even Bangladesh, Vietnam, Sri Lanka is ahead of us. That left turn which we took in post-independence caused India immense problems. Dr. Manmohan Singh in the early 90s liberated India by presenting a dream budget. Now this is another budget which is equivalent of that in the impact. We followed Russian model of centralized allocation. We made public sector citadels of our economy. And anyone who has seen that experience realizes that private sector is far more efficient. Air India versus Indigo, MTNL versus Reliance Jio or Airtel, Bank of Maharashtra or Canara Bank versus HDFC Bank or Kotak Bank, Tata Steel versus SAIL, Hindalco versus Nalco. Example after example suggests that private sector will do a better job in utilizing resources. Public sector has some incredible talent and incredible resources, but they don't get administrative freedom. Their decisions are always evaluated with the benefit of hindsight, and hence they can't perform. In this budget, government has declared, except 4 critical areas, we will not be in any other business. We will divest companies starting from BPCL, Air India, IDBI Bank, Pawan Hans Shipping Corporation, Container Corporation, and Neelachal Ispat. On top of it, 2 PSU banks and 1 insurance companies, plus listing of LIC. If government divest government companies, it's going to create efficiency and productivity in Indian economy. In 2003, we divested Hindustan Zinc Limited. It was making 250 crore loss in those days and producing 100,000 tons of zinc. When it was privatized with Vedanta Group, now they make 1.6 million tons of zinc and they contribute 10,000 crore back to the corpus of the government. This privatization will unleash potential of Indian public sector enterprises. Their assets will be utilized for better by the private sector entrepreneurs. And this will create momentum of growth. This is the budget of ambitious India trying to build infrastructure. For 7 decades, we were infrastructure deficit country. In Mumbai, fortunately, we didn't witness a lot of power cuts. But in cities like Delhi, Kolkata, Bangalore, Chennai, Ahmedabad, power cuts were day-to-day part of life. Load shedding was an acceptable word. When I was a kid, Bombay to Pune was an overnight journey. And there were many times we were stuck in the ghat. Traveling on ghat always created a fear. Today, courtesy Bombay-Pune Expressway, Mumbai-Pune is 2-hour journey, albeit from the outskirts of Mumbai, not from your home. India is becoming infrastructure surplus. We are now consuming 189 gigawatts of power, highest ever. But power cuts and load shedding are more because of distribution problem rather than generation problem. Our businesses suffered because our logistics costs are very high. Our railway tracks, which were one of the highest in Asia post-independence, are today congested because we couldn't keep pace like the Britishers in building railway tracks. Now government has been working upon dedicated freight corridor, which will connect Mumbai to Kolkata and Delhi to Kolkata and Delhi to Mumbai on a dedicated railway tracks for just freight trains. Today, our goods train run at 21 kilometers an hour. A good marathoner runs faster than our goods train. You might would have seen videos of freight train, double stack container train running at 100 kilometers an hour on dedicated freight corridor. This faster movement of goods will reduce working capital. It will reduce interest cost. It will help us make competitive in exports. It is a scenario which will benefit India tremendously. This is ambitious India's spending of 5.54 lakh crore for creation of infrastructure. Earlier, finance minister used to talk about resource constraints. We couldn't build infrastructure because we didn't have money. Now, this is Innovative India's budget. It is saying that we will monetize our existing fixed assets, roads, ports, transmission tower, railway surplus land, defense surplus land, warehouses, oil and gas pipelines, sports stadium. We'll monetize all those assets so that we can invest in creation of fresh assets. When Lakshmi Nivas Mittal wanted to marry his daughter, he could get Versailles Palace for the function. If India would have rented out Taj Mahal, it would have created hue and cry. We will shout when Taj Mahal is rented out for a function, which will raise resources for Taj Mahal. But we will not complain when behind Taj Mahal there is sewage running. Effectively monetizing assets will help us create more infrastructure, more assets. And that's this ambitious India's focus on moving to infrastructure surplus. This is the budget of progressive India. For always, we have talked about women empowerment, but we haven't empowered our women in our labor code. Today, if Ayushi wants to work in Nikhil Nayak's office late in the night, there is no restriction. There's no differentiation between a male and a female colleague at Nikhil Nayak because all of them are equal. That's true empowerment. But if Nikhil was running a factory, Ayushi could not have worked beyond 8 p.m. And if she stayed beyond 8 p.m., Nikhil would have been in jail. This not allowing women to work in night shift on factory floor created huge restriction on empowerment of women who wanted to work during night time. It restricted industries which needed to work in 3 shifts. Bangladesh, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, they all left behind India in garment exports as they are working 3 shifts, whereas we are working single shift. You'll have to pardon the noise of azan coming through. But this is now God, blessing us. In this budget, we have removed restriction on women to work in the night shifts. This will make our garment factories work in 3 shifts, and this will increase women empowerment and participation in labor. This budget is budget of metamorphic India. I don't know whether some of you are stuck in Franklin Templeton 6 schemes or not, but there are many investors who are stuck. Franklin Templeton's problem was not the credit, but it was more the liquidity. In April, when markets became illiquid, they were not in a position to honor day-to-day redemptions. This created a problem. Now, government has proposed setting up of buyer of the last resort corporation who will buy investment grade securities. Hopefully, we will not see Franklin Templeton happening in future. This is the budget of empowering India, equalizing India. We all know in India tax compliance is poor. Now government is proposing pre-filled income tax return where your capital gains, dividend income, salary income, interest income will be captured. This will improve tax compliance and allow government to reduce tax rates over a period of time. This is the budget of Transparent India, a budget which is transparently willing to account all off-budget items. In recent times, last 4 or 5 years, a lot of subsidies were shifted into outside of budget in Food Corporation of India's balance sheet. For decades, Finance Minister paid this year's subsidy on food fertilizer next year and shifted the burden to next Finance Minister. This budget, we have ended that practice and everything is in this year's budget. These are all very positive steps towards creating an economy which can grow by double digit in the years to come. FY22 double digit is given because FY21 is a negative base. But we need to ensure that we grow in double digit beyond FY23. This budget lays the foundation for this, like 1991-92 Manmohan Singh budget. Now, budget is purely declaration of intent, but there are lots of challenges in execution. If you look at Indian cricket team, they were visiting Australia multiple number of times, and except last 2 series, couldn't win a series over there. Winning test match also was quite an exception. But this match, this series, we could win with lots of problems, with captain returning home, with many players getting injured. When Indian cricket team went to Gaba, history was against it. Series was equal at 1-1 each. But in Gaba, Australia had never lost for 32 long years. India had never won at Gaba. And we were depleted with 2 of our frontline players, Jadeja, Ashwin, on the bench. On the 5th day, the pitch was deteriorating. Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood, Lyons were firing at us. And 2 people changed the direction of history, Pujara and Pant. Pujara could have played most of the ball with his bat, but there were certain balls which were bouncing due to uneven bounce. And he had a risk. If he tried to defend it with the bat, he may end up gloving a catch because ball was swinging. He took a courageous call of taking the rising ball on his body, and the upper part of his body was hit 11 times where there was no protection. Shoulders, fingers, arms. Because there was someone who was willing to take that body blow, India could tire out the Australian bowlers. Rishabh Pant went with a mission to win and started probably playing one of the most aggressive innings seen in recent times, where he started dispatching Australian bowlers. Both Pujara and Pant ensured that Fortress Gaba was conquered. India won the match for the first time and Australia lost the match after 32 years. This budget requires Pujara and Pant. This budget requires that kind of dedication, that kind of execution. Our track record, like Indian cricket team's track record at GABA, is not at all inspiring. For 10 years, we were trying to sell Air India, we were unsuccessful. For 2 years, we were trying to sell BPCL, we were unsuccessful. For a year, we tried listing LIC, we were unsuccessful. There will be challenges. Lyons, Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark will continue to ball aggressively, firing all the bullets on a deteriorating pitch. But we need our policy makers, we need our government to play with the dedication of Pujara and Pant. One, to tire out the bowlers. Second, to take the body blows. And third, to snatch the victory by playing aggressively. The market today is giving intent of budget a 21 gun salute. It is up almost 10% from the pre-budget days. But eventually that needs to be backed by execution. And as I mentioned, our track record is not good, but who knows, this will be like GABA story, where despite never winning for last 100 years, we could go and register a win. Now convert this budget into equity market. Many investors are saying that we seem to have a sharp run up in the market. And should we continue to remain invested? Should we book our profit? If I remember the market, I'm reminded of another Hindi movie, Amar Akbar Anthony. There is a song in that movie which goes something like this: होनी को अनहोनी कर दे, अनहोनी को होनी, एक जगह पे जमा हो तीनों, Amar Akbar Anthony. In our market, Amar Akbar Anthony is fund flow, sentiments, and fundamentals. In last year, all three have come together to create Anhoni, where market went from mother of bear market in March 20 at 7,500 Nifty to 14,500 Nifty, a mother of bull market in Feb 21. If you had asked me in March, April, May, June, July, would Nifty be crossing 14,000? My answer would have been no. But that has happened, and it has happened because of flow, sentiment, and fundamental. Flows from FPI and retail have been strong. Retail has been buying probably $25 billion in last 12 months. FPIs have bought another $24 billion in last 12 months or last 13 months. This is the most aggressive buying we have seen in our lifetime. $50 billion coming in a pandemic year is a record. On top of it, now HNIs, insurance companies will be more of a buyer rather than seller. And mutual funds who are right now selling because of redemptions, hopefully will see their redemptions slowing down and may turn out to be net buyer. So from a flow point of view, we are well supported. From a fundamental point of view, as active cases came down on Wuhan virus, market sentiment kept on improving. At 1,60,000 below active cases, we are in a good shape. More importantly, economic activity has picked up. GST collection at 1,20,000 crore is highest in our history. For fourth month in a row, GST collection is above 1 lakh crore. Our power consumption at 189 gigawatt is highest in our history. People are expecting it to cross 200 gigawatt. Railway freight loading in first 11 months of this year is likely to exceed last 11 months of previous year. The e-way bill generation is up 10%. Unemployment rate has fallen to 6%. It's almost now pre-COVID minus level. The foreign exchange reserves, including forwards, is crossing $600 billion. The economy was supposed to be turning positive in March 21 quarter. Now it is expected to do that in December 20 quarter. So sentiments have improved. as good news have started coming in. Money and sentiments can pull market only for some time, not all the time. It needs to be backed by fundamentals. And on a fundamental basis, we have seen some tremendous improvement in profitability. In the month of June 20, Nifty 50 quarterly profit was roughly about 45,000 crore. September 20, against expectation, it came at 1,10,000 crore, 35% higher year-on-year basis, highest ever quarterly profit for corporate India. If you look at Nifty on a trailing basis, the PE ratio was about 40. But if you look at on a forward earning basis, annualizing September earning, PE ratio came down to 26. Clearly, the earnings growth has taken everyone by surprise. September quarter earnings was up 35%. The December quarter profit for 102 companies before budget was up 32%. This kind of growth brings valuation down and makes market reasonably priced rather than expensive. Fund sentiment, fundamentals put together, market is well supported. Are there any risks in the market? Undoubtedly, yes. If you look at Portugal, US, UK, COVID-19 is raging. In US, every day 9/11 is happening. When terrorists strike in World Trade Center, 3,000 Americans died. Yesterday in America, because of Wuhan virus, 5,000 plus Americans died. So they are witnessing 9/11 every day. Only thing their media doesn't talk. Second, there is risk of interest rate and inflation rising. Today's equity valuation at 26 times feels okay because interest rates are low and inflation is low. Tomorrow, if inflation rises, then interest rates will rise, and to that extent, valuation will correct. From 26 times, maybe we'll have to start trading at 20 times. That means there is 20% correction ahead. So inflation and interest rate movement is something which we have to watch out very, very carefully. The third risk factor for the market is execution, execution, execution. For corporates, market has now built 30% earnings growth, 20% earnings growth, 15% earnings growth. That earnings growth must materialize. For GDP, market has built 10% plus GDP growth. That must materialize. Market is hoping that government will execute the budget which they have boldly announced. This budget needs to be executed by at least 70-80% to convince market that this is not a fluke budget, this is the real budget. So there are risks to the market, and markets will go up and down rather than one straight line like last 5 days. But the disciplined investors will be able to make money. At this point of time in budget, at this point of time in market cycle, we believe small cap, mid caps have a marginal edge. One can be marginally overweight small and mid cap and marginally underweight large cap, and equal weight to equity at this valuation. We will recommend you to invest via SIP or STP rather than lump sum. If you want to invest lump sum, then balance advantage fund or asset allocator is better category, where fund manager decides to invest between debt and equity, depending upon valuation of the market. Otherwise, SIP, STP is more appropriate to get into equity market. In the fixed income space, interest rates have risen, courtesy large borrowing program announced by the government. But do remember that this year's borrowing program is actually lower than last year's borrowing program. And hopefully RBI will make decisive intervention to ensure that interest rates don't go beyond certain limit. We expect interest rates to move like a pendulum, up, down, up, down, up, down, rather than straight up move. While we do expect 10-year yield to go and touch 6.5% this year end, but overall, the yield curve should rise more at the short end and less at the middle to long end. RBI's intervention will ensure that borrowing program goes through smoothly and interest rates don't rise, jeopardizing growth recovery. In fixed income, try to invest at the short end in short-term bond fund, banking and PSU debt fund, corporate bond fund, and dynamic bond fund. If your risk appetite permits, you can even look at credit risk fund. On the gold, we were always talking about the risk factor of gold being import duty. This budget import duty has been rationalized by 2.5%, and to that extent, rupee gold prices have come down. Gold prices are down 20% from the top. We believe now this is time to accumulate gold. And over the next 3 to 5 years, gold probably can deliver better return or comparable return compared to fixed income or more. This is how we see the broad market, broad economy. Happy to take your questions.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much. So going forward, I would like to ask you a few questions. Like while decoding the budget, you already spoke about a little bit of how it is going to affect the markets. So, sir, the first question, I would like to link it to the movie Amar Akbar Anthony as you quoted it. So a question which will be coming into everyone's mind, is it advisable to invest in mutual funds or direct equity or gold?
So let's first take gold. Now, there are many people who buy gold in small denomination, 1 gram, 5 gram, 10 gram, 15 gram, 25 gram. Most banks, give you a very fancy packaging. But do you know that you are paying 15 to 35% premium for buying gold in small denomination? Now, if you buy gold ETF, the entry cost will be 0.5%, 1% at best. So for all small denomination gold purchase, you must come by a gold ETF rather than physical gold. If you are buying large quantity of gold, many a times in jewelry market, people have to pay a premium. In gold ETF, there is no premium. So again, even for large buying, gold ETFs are better. However, for long-term gold investor, I will recommend sovereign gold bonds. You get 2.5% coupon for 7 years investment. And in case there is emergency, sovereign gold bonds are liquid, you can sell it. So effectively, for a long-term investor, sovereign gold bond, and for a short to medium-term investor, a gold ETF will be more appropriate compared to physical gold. Now coming to direct stock versus mutual fund, if you can understand a company and do a research on it, then direct stock is always better. As individual, your risk appetite could be significantly higher. As individual, you don't have to follow SEBI regulations on managing money. So direct stock picking with proper research can easily outperform mutual fund because of the risk you will take, because of the restrictions you don't have to comply. But most of us want to invest looking at the price move, looking at what my neighbors has bought, or looking at what tip I have got. That's not the best way to invest. For all those investors who are investing on someone else's advice, it's far better to come by a mutual fund. Mutual funds are low risk and moderate return options for a busy person who does not have time to look at his portfolio, to look at his investment.
I hope that clears all our investors' query regarding the gold and the mutual funds and the direct equity. So, sir, the next question is also related to the market. So, do you think the Sensex is close to its peak, as everyone are talking about the all-time high market? And do you think it is advisable to increase the allocation in equity at this level if it is not SIP or STP but a lump sum route?
If you want to invest lump sum, then please look at Kotak Balance Advantage Fund or Kotak Asset Allocator kind of fund, where fund manager takes the decision of investing between debt and equity depending upon his view on the market. For rest of the equity funds, it is far better to invest via SIP or STP. Yash, I mentioned this is equal weight market, not overweight market. The budget is very positive, but there are execution risks. The earnings outlook is very positive, but there is potential second wave of infection. So at this point of time, be equal weight to equity. If you are overweight, please book profit. If you are underweight, continue to invest via STP. If you are equal weight, don't worry. Don't take any action.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So, sir, the next question is related to the markets and the economy. The investor says that why is the rupee not appreciating in spite of the strong FDIs, and what is your forecast for 2021?
Rupee has already appreciated from 77 to 73, big figure. And this appreciation has obviously occurred for the flows which we are receiving. In last 1 year, our reserves are up $110 billion to touch almost $590 billion officially. Now, why is rupee not appreciating? Simply because RBI is intervening and defending a number. Earlier, they tried defending 75, then 74, then 73. Second, RBI also believes that over a period of time, the currency should be nearer to its fair value rather than appreciating or depreciating in terms of overvalue, undervalue. Right now, flows are very strong, so RBI is absorbing and defending a number. My feeling is that for next 3 to 4 months, flow visibility looks bright, and hence rupee will be under pressure to appreciate. And whatever level RBI defends will become the level where rupee will be stuck. However, over longer period of time, because of our inflation differential and productivity differential, there is a good chance that rupee will have to depreciate. If you see history of rupee movement, it doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in a step and a ladder. For some period, rupee will remain very stable. Then it will depreciate. It will overshoot on the depreciation side and appreciate. And then again, it will remain stable over there before next move. So in your longer term forecast, do price in rupee depreciation of 2 to 4%. But at least for next 3 months, I see rupee appreciating rather than depreciating to whatever level RBI will defend.
Thank you, sir. Sir, our next question is something which all our investors would be waiting to hear it from you. So, sir, what the budget has actually given to the middle class and the upper middle class?
So yes, yesterday I had a interview with ET Now, and I recommended that we should be following the path of US and Japan and UK and European Union in terms of monetary policy, in terms of fiscal policy. And then I was told that we are comparing apple to orange. Then I said, no, there's no apple to orange. They are rich, we are poor, and we want to become rich. Then we have to do what the rich people are doing. And then she said that, oh, but this budget is not for middle class, not for poor people. This is not inclusive. You only want your segment to grow. And I shared with them a classical example. In 1929, before, in America, the second most valuable asset in an individual's balance sheet was piano. House was the most important asset, then piano, and then motor car. Like in a traditional South Indian family, Bharatnatyam or learning dancing skill is critical. Like in every Gujarati family, Dandiya comes naturally to you, Garba comes naturally to you. Same way in 1929's America, piano was an important part of your culture. Every family had a piano in home, and kids were playing piano and learning piano. There were many companies making piano. There were specialized trucks transporting piano. There were piano coaching institute, piano tuition teachers, piano training institute, piano repairing institute. Now, when 1929 Great Depression came, you had problem of survival. घर में खाने के लिए पैसे नहीं थे, पियानो क्या बजाएंगे? Every family started putting piano on block. There were more sellers or only sellers and no buyers. What did American government do? It allowed piano industry to shut down. Piano manufacturing companies were shut. Piano training, piano coaching, piano repairing institutes were shut. Piano tuition teachers had to look for a job. Households' balance sheet was destroyed because piano asset became zero. America allowed creative destruction. In American culture, there is no Shankar Bhagwan. In Indian culture, we have Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Brahma creates, Vishnu maintains, and Shankar destroys. Our philosophy, our culture has already taught the importance of destruction. And yet Americans followed that creative destruction, didn't support piano industry and allowed resources to be allocated. Now compare that to India. When I was growing up in Lower Parel, there were so many textile mills. There was a strike by Datta Samant that created final death knell for textile mills, and most of them started shutting down. What did Government of India do? It set up National Textile Corporation to buy out those mills, and it continued to run those defunct mills with dilapidated machinery and no practical economic output by powering thousands of crore to save few jobs. What happened eventually in Lower Parel? Mills were shut, there was no output, workers were playing cards, there was no growth for them, and the whole Lower Parel became a ghost town. Then forces of market came. A mill was developed into Phoenix Mall. Some mills gave way to glitzy residential buildings. Some mills gave way to glitzy commercial buildings. Today, Lower Parel is as crowded or more compared to when it was a textile mill hub. The same mill workers who lost job now have their kids working in shopping malls. Yes, they continue to stay in the chawl, but many mill workers' sons have captured opportunity in a growing economy. And mind you, I'm not talking this as a capitalist. I'm talking this as a mill mazdoor son. My father was a textile mill worker in a closed mill called Mukesh Textile Mills in Kolaba. All of you might would have seen that mill in many Hindi movies, including Agnipath. Today, in that defunct mill, only Hindi film shootings happen. My father, because of textile mill strike and other stress, died in 1977. Our family had to go through a huge turmoil. My mother had to step in and do all kinds of work to protect us, to help us, to grow us. If government had not set up National Textile Corporation and allowed market forces to prevail, maybe family like ours, pain would have been limited. We would have come out of that hole early rather than later. This is observation of a mill worker's son who has seen the cycle. In India, when we talk about budget for middle class, budget for poor, please remember that if the pie is small, everyone will get crumbs. If we expand the pie, everyone will benefit. Now you may get more, I may get less, doesn't matter, but we are getting far more when the pie is bigger. This budget is focusing on expanding pie rather than distributing crumbs. That's the change. That's Sita to Gita transition. This budget is going to create foundation of faster accelerated growth, and that will benefit poor people and middle class more than anything else. For years, we talked about Garibi Hatao, Garibi Hati Nahi. Dr. Manmohan Singh and PV Narasimha Rao ushered in liberalization that has lifted more people out of poverty.
Thank you, sir. I hope with this, such an elaborative answer to the question, a lot of people would have got clarity about the budget for the middle class. Sir, talking about the next question, it is more linked to debt funds. So our investor asked that what's the overlook on debt funds, especially the corporate bond fund or the banking and PSU debt fund?
If you look at investment in debt fund right now, one, except that it's a low interest rate environment compared to the past. If you look at on a last 3-year basis, most of our debt funds have delivered between 8 to 10% return. Now that kind of return scenario is unlikely in the days to come because of lower interest rates. If coupon is 6% or 6.5%, 7%, to generate 10% return is not easy. On top of it, we are in a slightly rising interest rate environment. Obviously, RBI will intervene at every stage to make it a pendulum, but eventually interest rates will move. We expect 10-year to go to about 6.5% from 6.15% right now. So at this point of time, either you put money in dynamic bond fund with a 3-year horizon, or you go to corporate bond fund or banking PSU debt fund. All these products are high credit quality and they play on maturities to make money. Those who can take some risk should also consider credit risk fund. Their duration is low and yield or carry is higher. Those who can afford slightly more risk should look at monthly income plan, or which are now called Kotak debt hybrid scheme or Kotak equity saving schemes. In this, we put 25 to 40% in equity, and that generates better return on an overall portfolio. So this is how you should play out the debt part of the allocation.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to hand over it to my colleague Ayushi Murarka.
Thank you, sir, for explaining us how one can stick to the fundamentals in spite of the markets moving in one direction. As you said, markets can not move in one directions, and by sitting and sticking to our fundamentals, we can make right decision. So thank you for giving us the market outlook and the economic outlook over the budget. We also have with us I'm sorry. Sorry. We also have with
Ayushi?
yes,
I
sir.
think Ayushi, there's some problem with the. So I think we must thank Nilesh Bhai and for his valuable time. Rest of the viewers can stay back for. Please do the vote of thanks for Nilesh Bhai, and we have one quick session of 10 minutes with our chartered accountant Sanjeev Gokhale, Mr. Sanjeev Gokhale, to give some inputs on the recent budget. Changes for the taxpayers. So, but I think we can just because Nilesh Bhai has other commitments on hand, so maybe we could do the vote of thanks on Nilesh Bhai, and then yeah.
Hello, sir. Your today's session was an amazing knowledge-backed session where generally a budget session which goes on for 120 minutes. Here you have actually broke it down and solved our all investors query mere within 55 minutes. The most important thing for all our investors from this budget 2021 is the budget is more for the people to boost the economy by boldly putting it on the fifth gear or speedy acceleration of self-reliant and self-development. So, sir, thank you so much for being a part of Well Said, powered by NICO Health.
Thank you. Bye, Nikhil. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Ayushi.
Thank you, Nilesh Bhai.
Thank you, sir. So let us now address to some personal tax related queries. And now we have with us CA Sanjeev Gokhale, sir, who's going to address and us out understand more of discussion with. So to give you a brief idea, he's a chartered accountant and a cost accountant by profession, having 29 years of experience, and he is recognized for his expertise in personal taxation, audit, and investments subject. As a tax consultant, he has also appeared on APP Maza on a show called Paisa Zala Mota, and he also participates in budget analysis every year. So NICWealth welcomes you, sir.
Thank you. Hello, thank you. Hello, am I audible?
To understand the tax procedure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, go on.
So my first question to you is, we want to understand the taxation on the proceeds from ULIP. Under the existing provisions, ULIP was given an exemption under Section 1010D, and will and we have come up with instances where HNI were claiming huge premium. So with the reasons, do you think ULIPs have lost their charm?
Definitely, the tax, as far as the ULIP where the premium exceeding 2,50,000, it will be taxed as a mutual fund, just like equity oriented mutual fund, where the ULIP, am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Where the ULIP were purchased after 1st February 2021, it has lost its charm, in the sense you cannot have a huge investment because it was tax saving and it was tax exempt. Now it will be taxed just like a mutual fund or equity oriented fund, where the ULIP premium is more than 2,50,000. Very interestingly, Indian Brain no tax tried to find out whether we can purchase 2,40,000 ULIP in a different years. Let us say today I purchase ULIP of 2,40,000 less than 2,50,000 premium to save to save from that provision. And in the April, can I buy another 2,40,000 premium? The law has taken care that while calculating the redemption taxation, the all ULIP policies purchased by you from 1st February 2021 onwards, they will be aggregated, and if the amount exceeds 2,50,000 in all, then the proceeds will be taxable. Say for example, I bought a ULIP of 3 lakhs rupees today, and after say 5 years my proceeds are 5 lakhs rupees, then the difference of rupees 2 lakhs will be taxed as a capital gain. Of course, 1 lakh exemption will be available because a long-term capital gain on equity shares you get a 1 lakh exemption, but the remaining amount will be taxed at the rate of 10%. Can one plan in such a manner that his exemption is 1 lakh is available and buy ULIP accordingly? Yes, there can be a number of tax planning tips available to reduce the liability or to make it minimum. But certainly the ULIP which was totally exempt under Section 1010D, till today the finance minister of course made it taxable, and therefore whenever buying a ULIP, if at all you want to buy, you have to know, you have to take care that or at least keep in mind that taxability or the tax impact on the return. So one has to keep in mind.
Thank you, sir. It really helped us to understand the ULIP taxation. Coming to the next landmark amendment which has come up in the budget regarding the Provident Fund, where few employees were actually contributing a larger share to get that exemption. So will the recent amendments have any impact on their infusions, and should there be a limitation on the contribution side by the employees now?
Yes, definitely. The Provident Fund employees contribution more than 2,50,000 will attract tax as far as the interest accrued over it. Henceforth, from the 1st April 2021 onwards, there is yet no clarity as to whether the taxability will be year on year or it will be taxed at the end of the that is service, that is at the time of retirement. But the pure reading of the section, it says that the exemption available under section 10 is no more available to the extent of contribution over 2,50,000. It means it will be taxed at every year. The question again is still unanswered as per the budget speech or even the law as to how it will be computed. Will it be on the contributions made only in the current year? Let us say in the current year, means coming year, my contribution is say 5 lakhs rupees. It is certainly 2 lakh, more than 2,50,000. And therefore the remaining 2,50,000 interest, when I will get it at the end of the year 2022, will it be taxed at that time first of all? Or is the entire accumulated balance of the employees contribution over a period will be taxed? There is no yet clarity. The law it says that the manner will be prescribed. So probably while the passing the budget or thereafter, the CBDT will come out with the rules, and in the rule the exact nature as to how the taxability will be. It will be clear only after we are getting rules. At the moment, what we can do, those who are putting more money in the employees provident fund, more than 2,50,000, either should keep in mind that they can reduce that excess contribution more than what they were supposed to as per the law, and that will definitely save them from the taxes. They can divert this money to a mutual fund or any other safe investment. Of course, they can think of a tax-free bonds also if the yield is sufficient. But of course, they will be deprived of this 8% interest on the PF employees contribution, which was totally tax-free. One more angle is that about those who can still afford to pay taxes on the interest, and their tax paid income even after that taxes are paid, if it is still better than the other taxable avenues like bank FDs and the other avenues like bonds, etc., if it is better, they can continue with this. Even they should be ready to pay taxes. If at all the computation requires you to pay tax only after retirement, then the matter is totally different. After retirement, out of the large amount lying in your employee provident fund account, the interest portion, the tax will have to be paid at once. The remaining amount is available to you, so the impact will not be greater. Of course, at the time of retirement, you may be at maybe at a higher slab, but if it is after 15 years or 20 years, then probably we don't know what will be the tax rates. If the tax rates have gone down over a period of time, like the tax rate for companies have gone down substantially now. So for individuals also, after say 15 years, if the tax rates would have been gone down, then those employees will benefit. More clarity will come after passing the budget, but at the moment, as you rightly said, one has to, at least especially those who are with having a high salary and high contribution, there is an alert for them that the interest will be taxed henceforth. So either reduce your contribution or be ready with for the tax, compute that amount with your bracket and find out what is the post-tax return. If it is still better, continue with this.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure our salaried investors would have been getting clarity over this answer of yours.
Yeah.
To the last question, we have a few NRI clients who have joined us, and due to pandemic, they were stuck in India. So, is there any relaxation that the tax committee has offered when it comes to their residential status declaration?
Unfortunately, the budget was the right place, I would say, that to give some relaxation. Because you remember, everyone will remember that as the pandemic started somewhere in March and April, the CBDT had immediately issued an advisory that those who in the month of March, those who were staying in India because of the lockdown, the period will not be counted and the relaxation were given. But what about those who came to India somewhere in the first week of March or February, and they were about to leave India by April, but they could not go back due to pandemic and even travel restrictions, and they may be still here, or they might have exceeded the period of stay in India more than 182 days. The relaxation should have been given in the budget by amending the relevant provision or by inserting the explanation to the relevant provision under section 6, but it has not happened. Unfortunately, it has not happened. No word on this relaxation or what to do with these people, because if they become resident, then their entire world income is taxable unless they are not ordinarily resident. but not everybody enjoys the benefit of non-ordinary resident, and therefore some provision should have come. Very unfortunately, I would say the case has already been lodged in the Supreme Court of India, a PIL, to intervene and maintain the status quo of these non-residents. We expect either the case will be heard in near future, or the government may come out with some clarification at the time of passing of budget. So, but till today, unfortunately, the people, when they are to pay advance tax by 15th March, many of my clients are asking who were non-resident but have become resident because of this pandemic and the lockdown and international travel restrictions, that should we pay tax by 15th March at least to save the interest? My answer is no. I do not have any correct answer, because the budget has not mentioned anything. Supreme Court may decide the case. We don't know what is the time limit. Government may come out with some clarification, but as of today, I advise them not to pay tax, because some clarification, some relaxation will be done, because this is not a usual thing. This is very unusual situation where they did not stay in India out of their own wish, but the pandemic and the restrictions required them to stay back in India, and therefore they would have become a resident in India. I think government will give some relaxation. We should be hopeful of that, and therefore don't pay advance tax by 15th March, even though your status has become resident. So let us hope again some clarity will come in near future.
Thank you, sir, for addressing all our queries. And I'm very sure that all our individual clients would have, NRI clients would have got an answer by your inputs. I will now hand it over to my colleague Yash to give sir a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ayushi. Thank you, sir. Our today's session was a surprise for all our investors, where we had two eminent speakers with us, like the Budget 2021, which was one of the best for the market in past 10 years, and a budget which has received a 10 on 10. I hope our clients would give this webinar a 10 on 10 too. On a high energy note and maintaining the same level of excitement, on behalf of a 65-member team of NIQWELL and Nike Insurance, I would like to once again thank Nilesh sir and Sanjeev sir for being a part of Well Said and sharing the valuable insights on the economy, budget, and the tax implication. I also like to thank all my colleagues of Nike Group who have been working hard in making every webinar a big success. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for their overwhelming participation and enjoying our extended session. Nike Group requests everyone to stay safe, stay happy, happy weekend.